Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of Lyon. We're here for a little bit of power ranking breakdown and included in maybe the impact of some of these power rankings. We start in the LCS where the saga of the top lane in Lyon gets another little chapter added as we're hearing Disguised trading Castle over to Lyon Gaming, but not fully to in paper replace Dhokla because it's going to be competition. They will be competing for that starting top lane spot, which who knows if this throws off the vibes for the squad, but this move makes me think the chances of Dhokla winning back that starting spot are pretty low.
If this was maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, or the beginning of the season, even better, you could understand and possibly even buy in to whatever is being spun in this situation to tell you that it is going to be a competition between these two. That's not how it's going to play out. You don't make a move like this at this point of the year unless you're looking to replace, looking for that change. And that is obviously heavily favored towards Castle, who's coming in this situation. I think that Dhokla is 100% cooked on this Lyon Gaming roster. And frankly, I think I'd rather rip the Band-Aid off of them announcing that that was how it was going to play out instead of saying it's going to be competing. We'll all have to pretend like we believe it and see in the next week or so how that plays out. But yeah, this is absolutely one that is a game changer in the LCS because this should be on paper if Castle is coming in and performs the way expected and what he could fill in type of role in this roster. You can think this is an upgrade, but there's absolutely, I think, a world where this can also backfire, and maybe that's why they're doing this announcement as in compete, and you're keeping Dhokla around as a parachute in case this really isn't the fit for the squad.
I mean, regardless of how good a player is individually, anytime you're making a roster change 5 weeks into the split, there is definitely a chance that, things go haywire or don't fit super well. We know, even if you think, and I think most people think Castle individually is higher level than Dhokla right now, we also know Dhokla communicates, is a vocal top laner, so how does that impact? I know Inspired is a one-man army when it comes to comms a lot of the time for Lyon Gaming, but with this move, assuming Castle comes in, now you have this trio of Korean top laners when you throw in Morgan and Thanatos at the top of the table. It's not enough to propel Lyon past Cloud9 or Team Liquid right now until we do still get that head-to-head. But how about now, Lyon Gaming, the only squad in the LCS that will not have a domestic North American player on the roster. There we go. We did it. We unlocked this.
My goodness, this is not exactly the best look for the LCS, but I don't think it's an entirely unpredictable one given some of the history the LCS has had and roster construction, imports and lack of support thereof for the domestic scene. But then even more so when you look at what Lyon Gaming has done, you look at the backing of it financially, yeah, this is absolutely an avenue that you could have envisioned for them in the LCS, is simply saying, you know what? We're not here for that investment in that talent. We don't care about these other things. We care about winning. We care about having the strongest team that we can. And this is some of the avenues that you take if that is the attitude that you look towards your roster construction.
And listen, this is a 4-1 team in the league, right? At the top, near the top of the standings. It's not like they're struggling to pick up wins in the LCS, but if you watched the upper management CEO's video multiple times referencing the underperformance, not just of Dhokla, but the whole team individually and collectively during the EWC qualifiers specifically, and this speaks to the difference in, I think, care for players and, of course, the orgs who will make a lot of money if they qualify for EWC. But the fact that Team Sentinels, are the team representing through those qualifiers, I think speaks volumes to the level of seriousness that the big squads in the LCS were obviously putting to these online scrims.
There's absolutely been a buy-in or a purchasing of the team's investment into the EWC. that doesn't translate exactly to the player investment into an event like this. I think, again, it is still largely viewed as one of these events that has controversial personal, opinion and views and values and standpoints that are on the line when you are going towards it and everything else. On top of then where you try to fit it within the competitive ranking and system that has already, again, exists within the traditional and main and real set here that we have with going through first and MSI, Worlds, everything else like that, and even your domestic events. So it is absolutely one of these ones where I don't see that lining up. And frankly, that is exactly where you then see the results being so different, not just in the LCS, but you can go to the LEC, you can go to the LCK and LPL, and you will find those outliers. And it absolutely is because just the player investment is just not there, and understandably so.
And I mean, being online for a lot of it is obviously a big part of that, I think, because it probably does feel like a scrim for most of these guys, because that's exactly what it is. But yeah, this trade not going to completely shock the standings so far. We still get all of these top four head-to-heads going forward, but maybe you feel slightly better about FlyQuest and Sentinels because they were the squads in the finals for this EWC. But again, doesn't really actually impact our power rankings. We did have lots of movement you can talk about within the LCK. EWC qualifiers removed from that entirely, and obviously starting to see a little bit of separation as Hanwha Life dismantled KT Rolster in 2-0 fashion, and they followed that up by getting 2-0'd by the Bros, which is a lot more painful, and as a result, Gen G takes back that at least number 2 spot from KT for now.
It's not exactly been dominant from Gen G either to really start to
Nope.
push them up into that upper tier of the LCK, but it still has been enough and long enough of a road here, and again, enough of a fall for KT Rolster, where this is the situation that plays out towards the top of the LCK. Hanwha Life, though, really has been one of those teams that, again, when you are looking within that top order, they're the shining star that is separated amongst everyone else, with KT falling down and having these performances from Zeka and the rest of the squad where you really are seeing the top options come through. Hanwha Life has stolen and running away right now with that number 1.
Yeah, right now they'll be the big favorites going into that playoff, but it has been 4 series in a row for Gen G. Chovy's been absolutely locked in, and it's kind of series to series. They've traded players leveling up to reach Chovy's level, but we have yet really to see all 5 operating at those heights, which they did for, basically the entirety of 2 years when they were so incredibly dominant. And even T1 now jumping over D plus Kia on this ranking because they did have a much more competitive series against Hanwha. There still remains many question marks about D plus Kia as well.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you are building a little bit more confidence, a little bit of momentum if you are T1, and it takes a little bit of a hit, a little bit of a speed check against Hanwha Life and the end result there. But it had been building up, and you are seeing more of what you want. Yes, maybe that includes less Aurora games for Faker. I don't know or maybe you want more. I don't know how you fall on that spectrum and wanting to work on it and whatnot. But Easy Hoon, again, working with the squad, and we see him more integrated as the weeks go on with the coaching staff. Got that type of faith. But DK, you're also right in that they are one of these squads that maybe alongside KT overachieved in the early weeks and is maybe coming back down to earth a little bit here, unless we can see a course reversal in the next week or two of the LCK.
I mean, I do think both of those squads, it was a classic. They took advantage of slumping Gen G and T1 to kind of fill that void, and things are kind of slowly starting to even out. And, we're clearly getting now, I think, that top 5, which is going to make up the Legends group heading into the second half of this round of LCK action, because nobody is stepping up really into that 6th spot. Case in point, we got Hanjin Brion stepping up after taking down KT. All of a sudden, they've got back-to-back 2-0s. You combine that with a 4-series losing streak for Nongshim, and Diablo was not the answer to fix some issues for them.
No, I don't think it would be really wise to have expected it to be so immediate in that regard, despite the hype or accolades that could have followed Diablo in that situation. This has been, I think, kind of the weird puzzle because I want to say I'm disappointed in the LCK where this middle tier hasn't found that next step, and it really feels like they've stalled out in regards to this split and where they've gone. But you have to give full credit to the bros because the bros certainly have shown that turnaround and have put together a run where now it is a serious consideration that they can leapfrog some of these squads that have stalled out in this middle tier of the LCK. Got to give them credit for what that is, again, putting a run like that together, even if you think it is just simply this flash in the pan.
And I think the bigger surprising part of the Diablo trade is all of a sudden Taeyun has kind of been unlocked in his couple of series on BNK and looked better than he even has in like a couple of years, it feels like.
Kellen stocks rising, right? That's what I'm
100%.
talking about in this situation. And yes, Taeyun stocks as well rising for them. I think that is going to be one of those ones where, on top of everything else that we talked about with BNK and where you are benefiting in this situation from how just simply the removal of this attitude and everything else that was in that environment, what has stepped in is quality as well, and you're definitely going to see turnaround from BNK. Them alongside this all of a sudden surge of the bros is my hope within this middling tier of the LCK.
And, there's still, even if you're going to be stuck in Fry's group, and it does really seem like the bottom five is established, one of them's at least going to make playoffs and have chance at a miracle run to maybe get to MSI. It'd really have to be a miracle run for any of those squads, I think.
It's absolutely a big blow, I think, to your year and to your competitive growth if you are not within that top tier grouping of the LCK and going up against the big boys despite maybe even getting bullied and beaten down by them the way that KT was for the majority of last year. You have to look at it as one of those things, but at the same time, doesn't mean that you can't be in this lower tier group, find your footing in whatever it is for some of these groups, and then take that challenge, the incredible upper gauntlet road as it would be.
And, even you can talk about KRX as well, having some decent individual performances lately. They won their last series against, Nongshim again, who struggled mightily, but pretty much everybody but the DN Supers, there's some positives you can talk about, some feel-good moments for them in the LCK, which is nice to see the bottom feeders getting a little bit of love. There's lots of love to go around in the LEC, and it's kind of similar to the LCK, where it's very much a defined upper and bottom half of the league. We basically have our playoff teams figured out so early on in the split, and now we're looking, or at least I'm looking at, we've talked about Vitality going to have 3 weeks off, blah blah blah, but now it's also Na'Vi who's going to have 3 weeks off, and that's the squad I might actually be more worried about because you're not sure if they're actually at that kind of top 3, top 4 level within the LEC. And you look at their overall record, even though they're 6-3, they're 12-11 overall. So 5 out of 6 of their series wins have needed 3 games, and all but 1 of their series losses, they've been swept 2-0.
And this is certainly a squad that you can envision needing that consistency in scheduling, in those matches, in that test and medal that you only get in that true competitive environment where it is stakes on the line, not in scrims, not in anything else. So that is absolutely one of the pain points of the scheduling within the LEC, that you have this not only for Vitality where it is a concern, but even more so, I think, for a squad like Na'Vi, as you've laid out and where they are and how that record plays out. What are you going to do? It's the pie that has been made, and you're going to have to sit with it right now in the LEC. And frankly, that right now serves only Movistar Koi. Heading into this roadshow weekend, you're getting a big, interviews with Melzamet talking about this, with the players got to perform, needing JoJo to be the big superstar. I agree. This has to be the superstar weekend for Movistar Koi to see them rocket up the rankings here, because right now, it is a very, almost G2-esque type of split of last split for them. And that, yes, worked out for G2, but that's G2. I don't know if Movistar Koi's got that type of mojo worked into them.
They definitely don't have the precedent to trust them to be able to just turn it on in playoffs. But we've seen signs of it, and truthfully, I think after this last weekend, they'll probably get propelled ahead of a squad like Navi. We just need to, needing 3 games to take down Shifters. Shifters kind of through both of their losses isn't enough to really bump them past Navi. But you mentioned JoJo, and listen, this guy has been at that superstar level, and if Navi or if Movistar Koi has a solid weekend, get a win against G2 or KC, even if they split one of those, this guy should be in MVP conversation. Let me just list the numbers that he's first in among mid laners. He's first in CS differential at 15, damage percentage, kill participation, gold per minute, CS per minute, solo kills, and XP differential at 15. Like, he has been far and away the most dominant laner in terms of mid lane, and right up there with Nako in terms of just most dominant player on the Rift this split.
And coming fresh off of talking about Lyon Gaming with no domestic players, man, wouldn't it be nice if there was a certain domestic mid laner that you could maybe call on? But I'll tell you, if this road weekend goes well and is just as exciting, just as hype as what we saw with KC and the environment and everything else, I don't think we're going to have an opportunity to get this guy back from the LEC is the way that things could shape up here. And that is, again, where the importance really does come through on everything with this road week for the LEC, for Movistar Koi. In particular, you look at what happened with KC, you see the environment, you hear everything with Busio. Yeah, I know that guy is not coming back. You can do the same here with a guy like Jojo Pyun, where we've already, I think, again, only scratched the surface still of what is possible and what is capable to get out of him. And that has still been worth it for a squad like Movistar Koi.
You know it's bad when you're taking pride. Listen, the best mid and best support in the European League right now are probably 2 LCS imports. So we'll take pride in that.
What? This is the reverse timeline. We used to be saying this about the LEC in the LCS all those years ago. Now it's reversed here. I don't like it. I don't like it with the shoe on the other foot at this point.
And listen, let's, scheduling issues aside, venue stuff, the LEC, I know budgets have been, it's not nearly the same level that it was, but if you talk about the actual on-Rift product, it has been one of the higher quality, more exciting splits and even years collectively when you throw in Lost Ratones being there for the verses. But heading into now this final week, it's obviously great. We get KC, G2, and Koi all matching up. But really, you throw Vitality into that list, and that's 4 squads that I wouldn't be shocked if any one of them end up winning the entire split. And it feels like it's been a long time since you've had enough confidence to talk about 4 different teams at that level.
And it's all at the perspective of the excitement within those 4 teams that you are talking about, them having that chance, being in the running for it in the situation. It isn't one of these ones where it's a lame duck competition where you're going, oh, well, someone's going to make just a couple less mistakes than the other guys here because we're going to see a lot of them or whatever. And that's how you end up through it. Not this time around. This does seem like it is going to be that true test of the strongest within the region. That's always where you start to see these fireworks. And again, as much as we don't like to talk about that scheduling, I think the way that it will work out at this roadshow for Koi is going to be, on the one hand, exciting. On the other hand, unfair for certain organizations that are left on the wayside. But it will bleed into our eventual LEC playoffs that should be thrilling. And I say eventually because, yes, we're all, no matter what, road weekend or not, going to still have to buckle up for 2 weekends off before the playoffs get kicking off.
And listen, these standings, you can talk about, the playoff teams being locked, but the standings are going to shuffle big time with all these squads going head to head. And I think the forgotten one that's even at this event, Giant X is also playing, by the way, alongside KC, MKOI, and G2. And they got the same record. There's still a possibility that Giant X can get some upsets and finish higher than G2 or MKOI. And seeding wise, it's still important not to be that 5-6 seed in this playoff bracket, because if you are, you're going right to losers. You get no grace extra life. So not finishing bottom 2 in playoffs is still integral. Is there a way Giant X makes some noise?
There's a way. I think that's certainly one of the ones where this feels like the quiet person at the party, just standing in the corner, and nobody knows I'm in a playoff spot over here.
But they
It's
might
like,
actually be the most interesting person if somebody talks to them.
exactly, and so that's where it is for Giant X, and I think that's they need to have that type of explosive, hey, I'm here at the party type of moment. This weekend is really what I'm looking for at that point, as you've laid out. Being, yes, you're at the party and I'm in the playoffs, guys. But you got to be in one of those top 4 ones to really be in one of those considerations. And again, to give yourself that breathing room, because unfortunately, I don't think any one of these teams, despite as excited or good or about them, I don't think any one of them is perfect. And that would be the situation where you then could say, we don't need a loser bracket. What? No, you need to have that as an opportunity. If you're any one of these squads, you're not that overly confident about them.
Yeah, and I think they, more than any of the other big 3, need a competitive showing here to feel good heading into playoffs, because even if G2, KC, or Koi go 0-3 or really have a dud it'd be a disaster if MKOI did it just for their fans. But even if they go winless, you're still okay with them. They can still bounce back in playoffs. If Giant X aren't competitive in all or most of their series here, playoffs are over before this first round even starts for them.
They got to be real locked in. And yeah, for Movistar Koi, yeah, as you said, no bad juju here. An 0-3 on this one would be the bigger disappointment is with the fans. It still would be a serious hit to how you're talking about them. No ifs, ands, or buts about it when you're talking about any of those teams suffering a situation like that. But yes, it has to be Giant X performing out at this point if you're looking for that difference maker, or again, someone to rise up and again add to the picture that we have already talked about as far as the competitive squads and top tier teams in the LEC.
No question we're going to get some drama at that MKOI Spanish arena to close things out in the regular season. But that is it today for Liga Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, absolute stunners. You know we appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch you on that flippity flip.